Hey, everybody, to the Shed Show. Man, do we have a show for you today. Uh, like I said in all my social media posts, the story that I'm going to be bringing to you is one that needs to be heard, one that I think a lot of everyday Americans don't realize is happening within our military ranks. So, with that, I want to welcome Sergeant Gaburel of the United States Army. Thank you so much for coming on the show and allowing us to amplify your story.
Yeah, no problem.
So, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and tell them how we got connected real quick.
Yeah.
So I got an email, and it was very detailed, laying everything out that had happened. Um, in it, she said that she was a woman, Army soldier, worked in a medical clinic, and that there were these things going on. And she'd gone up her chain of command, and nothing. The outcome was not what was desired, and so that's why we're here today. I didn't know you were a black female until we had started going back and forth on email, I think it was. So
Right.
the first thing I did was ask about the evidence. I said, hey, this sounds crazy. Send me what you have. And the next thing I have is a Google Drive, full of tons of documents that I tried to get through as many as I could. Um, so yeah, this is a pretty crazy story. So the whole point of today is to give Sergeant Gabrielle my microphone, my platform, and hopefully all of you will take this story and amplify it, because that's the whole point of today. Is I want to get her story out. I want people to see the inner workings of the military from a black female standpoint, because I think it's important to mention that why this story is disheartening. It isn't special. It is happening to more than her. And that's why this story needs to get amplified. That's why we need to send it to senators. We need to send it to congressmen. We need to put it on our platform, share it on Twitter, X, I don't care what it is, threads, share it everywhere. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And if it's okay, uh, I want to go ahead and start with the uncomfortable question first.
Okay.
Do you think that what has happened to you in your command was due to you being a black female?
Um, at first, I didn't think that was the case, but after I started observing everything that was going on at the clinic, I started noticing how certain individuals were treated, and while others were scrutinized for doing the same thing. I mean, there was one incident where one of the soldiers referred to another staff member as that fat black bitch, and nothing was done to address this. That same person kept on repeating the AAVEs that we would say in the clinic, what the black soldiers would use. So if we said one of the things that I had said was, "Oh, y'all said that with y'all's chest," that person took it and ran with it and said, "Oh, I'm using this as a celebration and a cheer for the soldiers making reports up to IG," and I'm like, if you don't understand what we meant with
Right?
that, you could have just Googled it. You could have just asked any soldier in the
Anybody?
clinic, but you didn't.
Nope.
So it
And,
was
and for
wild.
anybody out there that doesn't know what that means, let's just clarify. When you say, wow, you really said that with your chest, it's like saying, wow, you really said that. Like, you really believe that. Like, you put the emphasis behind it. You know,
Yes.
like you
Yes.
really have no idea what you just said and how, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just insane.
Yeah.
So, with that said, knowing that this is probably going to make them come down even harder on you, what's making you go public now? What made you reach out to me and decide, you know what, I feel like I've done what I can, and now I need something else. I need to try something else.
Right. Well, I've exhausted all my options. I've been through the entire chain of command, all the way up to Medcom. I've used the EOA, I've used Sharp, I've used IG. Um, My last Hail Mary was the Congresswoman, but they kept on pushing her in circles. And so they kind of just backed off. They're like, we don't even know what to do at this point because the Army's saying you can't do anything until, you know, they push the paperwork through and, go to HRC. Then you have to hire a good lawyer to hopefully, pull that information back.
Yep.
So it was of no help. So, and
That
that's when I
that
emailed you.
that's something I also want to ask. So, did you go to Legal on Base? Did you go to JAG?
So I had initially emailed JAG when everything was going on. This was even, I can even go as far back as January. I emailed them twice. No answer, no reply, absolutely nothing. I was calling, and every time I would call, they would say, hey, we don't have a lawyer over here. You would have to call this base. And that base would say, oh, we don't have a lawyer over here. You would have to call back this base. And I kept on, listening to like the other soldiers because they were going through the same thing. Because I wasn't the only target in the clinic. The other
Right.
soldiers, they would reach out to JAG, and JAG at the end of the day always told them, well, just go ahead and take it. It's not that bad. Just go ahead and take it. So there was no solution whatsoever.
So no help from legal through the military. So that forces you to
Yeah.
cover the bill, right?
Yes.
How much have you
Yeah.
spent so far?
6 grand, and
And
I'm
how
about
much?
to
How
dish
much do
out
you? Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Because every time, I retain a lawyer, it's like about 3 grand. And then for each case, it's like another 3 grand. So right now I have to pull back my NCR, and I have to make sure um, the GOMAR is removed from my iPerms, or at least hidden. So that's another 3 grand. So yeah,
That's insane. Because I think a lot of people are under this misconception that soldiers can just walk on base and they're going to get represented, and everybody
no,
has legal. It doesn't work like that. And
no,
more.
especially if you have rank, you cannot do that. You cannot, you know, let these people have so much power when it comes to your future, because
Yeah.
there won't be a future.
Nope. They're not going to look out for you.
Right.
I think it's like I think we were saying this when we were talking the other day. Is IG is like the HR department of the military. It's like they
Yeah.
really aren't there to protect us as the soldiers. They're really more there to protect the industrial complex that is the military. you know?
Right. I mean, they're just making sure everything, all the regulations and whatever is being followed.
Yep.
And yeah, at the end of the day, we report the stuff to IG, and then they just drop it right down into whoever's lap it is. So if we report hypothetically our first sergeant, IG will probably give the information back to the first sergeant and be like, handle it,
Yep.
defeating the entire purpose of it.
You're like you're giving
Yeah.
it to the person that we
Yeah.
have the issue with.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. Okay, so we've gotten through you've had to pay for your own legal counsel. So let's go to why we're here. What started this, and what did you report? Let's start with that.
Okay, so we're here because I made a series of complaints. These complaints even started before I even got to unit. These complaints started even before I received my orders to Germany. So all I did was I did a lot of follow-ups, made sure everything was followed through. I gave the soldiers answers, and then I started experiencing some stuff that I was confused and I was shocked, like, why are we allowing this to happen? And these people were doing this stuff so easily without any issues. It's like they were so comfortable
Mm,
doing the things that they were doing because they've gotten away with it for so long. And then here I am, trying to hold people accountable. They didn't know what to do with that. And
yeah.
so, yeah, I made a series of complaints. Um, Let me go ahead and list some of them off for you because I have it pulled up on my computer. So one of the issues that we had was the protected communication was absolutely not protected. If we, had a closed door meeting with whoever to use the open door policy, or, the NCO support channel, that was not a secret. That was known within a couple hours. The chain of command knew about it, everything. And I'm pretty sure there was probably like an email traffic about it too, and an MFR. Um, The chain of command, they changed my NCR the day I requested to speak to the region sergeant major.
And what is that?
So the NCR is like the evaluation. And so with that, I had all five exceeded standard. And then after I made a report, I only had three exceed standard and two met standard. It happened the same day. It was almost instantaneous. It, honestly, it didn't even shock me at that point because I'm like, well, I mean, they've gotten away with damn near everything.
Hmm.
This is just another thing on their list.
So how long have you been in the military?
14 years.
And have you had any poor reviews going into this
Never,
situation?
never, never.
So
Not one. I've never even had a negative counseling. Never.
until you got here,
Until I got here, until I met these individuals.
these wonderful individuals. Okay, so I want you to tell me in your own words what you were reprimanded for after making these reports, because from where I'm sitting after reading, the evidence you sent, uh, it sounds to me like your command was equating you making reports to IG as some way disrespecting the clinic or the command or something. What was that?
So pretty much they got me for disrespecting the chain of command because I made reports to IG. So they equated me making reports to IG as disrespect. Even in the GOMAR that they gave me, they highlighted that I was the root cause of the issues that started even before I got to the clinic, which is insane because these issues started like prior to March of 2021. I didn't get to the clinic until August of 2021. So I had to submit, evidence in my rebuttal that
Like I wasn't
I
even
came
there.
to Korea in August. Like I had to submit my orders and everything. It was insane. And even then, so I don't even think they looked at my rebuttal. That's
Okay,
the messed up part.
so that reminded me of something else we talked about. What
Mhm.
Tell me about your first 4 weeks in the clinic. How were you received?
Okay, so my first 4 weeks in the clinic, I am processed with one of the individuals I later reported. So we all in process together. It's about 21 days of in processing, and that's all you do. You just do in processing. You don't go to the clinic, so you don't have any interactions with anyone from the clinic until you're done with in processing. So when all of that was done, I got to the clinic. This other individual had everything set up, their computer, their workspace, all their certificates, everything to log into a computer, everything was set, good to go. But it was almost like they weren't ready for my arrival. They knew I was coming, they knew of me, but it
Yeah.
was kind of like, we can figure it out later. And so when I got there, they gave me like a list of stuff that I needed to do as my new job. And so I was like, well, I need a computer and I need some type of workspace, and that didn't happen. So I had to pull out my laptop out of storage. I had to buy a CAC reader, and because the internet in the clinic was so glitchy, I had to pay for mobile Wi-Fi. And this was like for the first 4 weeks. And so now my next task was to find a workplace. And so finally, I was hopping from like one office to the next. I forgot maybe I should work here, maybe I should not. So finally, I landed in the break room, and that's where I worked out of for about 4 weeks.
So
And
the
that's
per
because they still expected me to do, everything
your
without,
job.
right. It
so
was insane.
so it sounds like the person you're in process with got the red carpet rolled out and you got the leftovers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I wasn't even upset about that. What was more bothersome was that they still expected me to do all these taskings,
Yeah.
knowing that they didn't give me you
the
know, a laptop
resources.
or Wi-Fi or anything whatsoever, and they did not care at all.
And I just have to point out, and I'm not insinuating that you were looking at people's medical charts or anything like that
Hmm.
on there, but I mean, you're still using your personal wireless Wi-Fi with your personal computer to work in a medical clinic for the military. That's that should never happen.
Right. I mean,
That
I
should
definitely
never
dropped the
happen.
ball on a lot of stuff because I wasn't about to pull PI or any medical information on
Nope.
my laptop. That was not the
Because
thing. So,
because they
yeah,
told me to isn't a sufficient response when they come asking
no,
questions.
yeah, no, I was
It
not
just
about to
doesn't.
put my career or my rank on the line
Yep.
to help
But that's
these
the
people
position
out.
they put
No,
you in.
yeah,
I think that's important to point out. They put you in
yeah,
that position. And
yes.
and if some of you out there don't think that there are higher ranking individuals that won't shrug their shoulders and say, I never said that, I never told her to do that, trust me, there's people that do that. They have no problem. Um, so before we get into the meat of it, because we're going to go through, I think it's important we go through every accusation, uh,
Yeah,
because like you said, it's some of this stuff started before you even got there.
yeah.
So how they're blaming you is it just seems like they're pulling sticky notes off a wall, like, oh, let's see if this will work, you know. But what were the bias and conflicts that you feel were surrounding this investigation?
Um, so whenever there is an investigation, the higher ups they choose one person. That one person is the one who chooses the investigator. So you'll have a primary investigator, and then you'll have an alternate investigator. And so the person that was doing the choosing was friends with one of the people that I had reported. And so they were such good friends that this person that had reported had thrown a party for this other person's spouse. So,
So they hang out socially.
yes, right. I mean, they were all in the, I mean, they're all in the military. So, but I mean, and nevertheless, this person hosted a party for this person's spouse. So that was the first bias. Um, the second one was one of the investigators was companions with one of the people that I have reported. This other person was one of the main subjects in the actual investigation. And, you know, given this person's position, they have to work together. They don't have a choice. They have to have a good work relationship. And so I already knew that, you know, the investigation was going to go far left. And then the third bias that I found was the same person, the subject of the investigation, that person was friends with IG. Come to find out, they had worked previously together, same office, um, same everything. And so everything that we were reporting to IG, even if it was like, you know, anonymous, was still getting, you know, told to the subject of the investigation.
Yeah. And I just want to know here, if you feel like Sergeant Gabriel is talking in code a little bit, it's because we're trying to be careful. We don't want to mention anybody's names. Like, and I want to drive home again. I have personally seen all this stuff, so I have the evidence to back all of this up. I've read it. I know that I can prove all of this if it comes down to it. But out of respect for the people, and also just so that they don't try to make us take it down, we're not going to mention their names. But of the people that she was just talking about and the bias with the investigation, I think it's important to note that these are not enlisted people. These are not senior enlisted people. These are colonels, commanders, majors. These are high ranking individuals that she's talking about. So I just think that's important. So also going into this, before we go into the accusations, were you ever allowed to speak to the investigator?
No. I was one of the last people. Actually, I think I was the last person to be interviewed by the one of the IOs. That was the alternate IO. And when I requested to speak with the primary IO, the alternate IO said, "Well, no, because this person is very hands off." And then the alternate IO said, "And by the way, this person also requested to speak with the other subject of the investigation." And so I was like, "Well, how come the IO requested to speak to this person to hear their side of the story, but
We
not
won't hear yours.
right?" And then I was like, "Well, at least can you take the binders?" And I had two binders right in front of me while the alternate IO was talking to me. I showed this person the folders and I was like, "Here, you can
I've got
take it. I have
everything.
copies. I have everything." And
Yep.
the person refused to accept any of my evidence. And these were the evidence that would have countered every accusations on the spot because
Yeah.
it was solid proof. It's not just, he
Not
said, she
hearsay.
said. It was actually emails, it was text
Text
messages,
messages.
it was pictures. It was solid proof.
Yep. It really is. I think that's the part that really sticks out to me. This whole thing is that they, if you're going to go speak to the other people that were reported, but you're not going to speak to the person that reported them, that's not a non-biased investigation. If you're not going to take the evidence that the person who made the report has, that's not an unbiased investigation. That we need to really keep that in our minds going into this, because even with them stacking the cards against her, what what was the outcome of the report? Like, I know we're going to go through it step by step, but what was the outcome for you?
So it had boiled down to four questions that I know we're going to get to later on, but it was all in my favor. They found no evidence of anything. All the statements that they said, there was no corroboration. They had nothing. They didn't submit anything at all because there wasn't anything to submit. It was just their words against my solid proof that they didn't want to see.
Yep.
So it was in my favor.
And again, I think that that's important, is that they didn't have any evidence against you. They didn't
Right.
have anything to back up the statements against you.
Right. The investigation was in my favor, but when we saw the findings, it said the complete opposite of the investigation. It was almost like there was another investigation that we didn't know about because everyone that had looked at the investigation, they were like, "Hey, can you go ahead and send me the other investigation?" I'm like, "No, this is actually it. This is what I received from Jack. This is it." And they're like, "No, that's not possible because this is saying the complete opposite of the actual investigation."
Yep.
So yeah, we're honestly still all confused about that.
Well, since IG wouldn't listen to you, um, I think it's time that we go through the accusations one by one and go ahead and shoot them down. What do you say?
Let's go.
All right. So let's go with claim number one, which was Sergeant Gaburel uses information to build trust with subordinate soldiers and attempts to wield this power against the command.
Right. So the evidence that the IO showed was none. There wasn't any. There was nothing to back up. Actually, when the IO said this, the IO added most likely happened. That was it right there. This most
Most
likely
likely.
happened.
Yeah,
Right.
not definitive. You don't have any evidence, just, yeah, it probably
It
happened.
it most likely happened. And the only thing I can think about was somehow they got a hold of the whistleblower report because that was the only evidence that I can actually think about that would have me talking, or mentioning anything about anything
Yeah. Yeah, you
about my
detail you
chain of
detailed
command.
it out in the whistleblower. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So, let me.
but yeah, for the evidence that I had wanted to submit, which I later added to the rebuttal, was I added the whistleblower report, and that detailed everything that had happened the year prior, and that should have shut that down on spot.
Yeah. All right. Claim number 2. There are multiple examples of her telling soldiers information they should not know.
Yeah, right. So the evidence that the IO submitted was none. We scanned that entire investigation, page by page, line by line. There wasn't anything to support what the IO said. In fact, what the IO had mentioned was I said that one of the seniors wanted to keep one of the soldiers at the MP station. I know for a fact that MP station doesn't have like a jail cell or anything like that to actually hold soldiers, for a period of time. They might have like a little holding area, but that is not a thing. Like the MPs won't do that just for like a silly reason. I knew that. And so I had submitted my evidence, which was an MFR of the soldier recounting what happened, and the soldier outright denied me even saying that. And actually, the text message that I showed was a text message from the year prior when it had happened, of the soldier saying that it was another NCO that had said that to him.
And that, can we say that? That who that NCO was that told him that?
So this is the one we're going to call the unhinged NCO. This is the one that referred to one of the staff member as that fat black bitch.
Yeah, now it makes more sense.
Yeah.
So again, they have no evidence, and they're actually accusing you of something that the person you accused did, essentially.
Correct.
Okay.
That is an ongoing theme in this investigation.
Ain't that the truth? Okay. Claim number 3. Telling soldiers about personal details behind command decisions.
So only one person said this, and
I felt that.
I'm trying to
I
see how to
felt
word
that.
this right, because when
Ooh,
I
babe.
when
Ooh.
I when I left the clinic, I left my soldiers in the care of this person, and oh boy. Anyways, um, yeah, there was no evidence of this, and I think what this person was talking about was there was a situation where there was actually two situations where two soldiers that lived off post with their spouses, they needed to um, come on post to stay in a 72-hour hold barracks, and that's reserved for soldiers going through any issues. And so I contacted the barracks managers and I was like, hey, we have a situation at hand. I know it's like last minute, like this was like around midnight. One of the cases was at midnight, the other one was like around 2 a.m. And immediately they gave me keys, they gave me the room, and they're like, hey, whenever they're ready, they can come through. And so I think these soldiers thought that I had probably snitched on them or reported it up. But I mean, I did report it to the chain of command. That's something that I have to do.
Yeah.
But as far as, telling Tom, Dick, and Harry that that's not a thing, that's not my lane.
Yeah.
And up to this day, people don't even know that that happened.
Yeah.
Only
And,
the chain of command and the barracks manager.
and I think, again, when you're a supervisor, you have certain responsibilities to the chain of command that you have to follow no matter what.
Yes. Yes.
And that just is what it is. But you can also you can let your chain of command know what's going on without telling them, all the personal
Yes.
information of the soldier. You just have to let them know what's going on. You don't have to tell them everything.
Correct. Bare minimum.
Yeah, you tell them the bare minimum, and then like you said, it's not like you went around the clinic telling this person's business. You did what you needed
Right.
to do as a supervisor. You did your job, and
Right.
that's it.
Right. And I was later told by friends of this person that this person only said that statement because they were trying to be in with the good old boys, with the with the racist four. They wanted to be in with them because, I mean, it was known that this group of people primarily attacked females and people of color in the clinic. It was a known thing. And when I left the clinic, this person would have been the new target. No question asked. And the person did become a target after they made that report.
Yeah. They use you and then dispose of you when they're done.
In one of the most horrific way, honestly,
Yep.
that they could have ended this person's career with their little antics. Yeah.
Some people, I know it sounds bad, but they like having that power, like being like, I can end your career, right? It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you gonna do it over something stupid?
They don't care.
Nope. It's all about the power. All right, moving on to the next claim. Spreading disinformation that the commander is taking away leave and holidays. How did that come
Yeah.
about?
Wow. Honestly, I think we all laughed at that one because the people who reported this was the two individuals that I had reported, and one of the people that had reported this came after all of this allegedly had happened. So it's like, how you weren't even here.
Right.
But I digress. So what they were talking about was, okay, so before, around June, July, they start sending out memorandums of like the federal holidays and other holidays and 4 days and all that stuff.
Yep.
The garrison sends that out to everyone,
Yep.
everyone. And then the clinic, our leadership, like above the clinic, they send out their version of it, and we're supposed to blast it out to everyone. I mean, they do blast it out to everyone, but we're also supposed to blast it out to everyone. And so what soldiers they're supposed to do, they're supposed to look at this, figure out when they want to take leave, because we can't have everyone in the clinic going on leave at the same time. And so we have this thing called the troop to task, and it has everyone names, and it has the dates all the way up to like the next 2 years. And so you just put your information up there like, hey, I want to take leave here, I'm going TDY here, and that sort of thing. Like, this was common knowledge. You have to forward the information to the soldiers. You have to tell them about this stuff.
Yep.
And so that is what they reported. That was what they reported. They reported that I forwarded information about leave.
You mean told them the truth?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that's because everyone was forwarding this information. Like, the information I had
You weren't
forwarded
the only
was
one.
forwarded, right? This was forwarded by the commander's secretary. So everyone was forwarding this down to make sure everyone got this information. So this was not anything new. And even
No.
before I had forwarded this information, the soldiers were texting me this information to make sure I had it. So, but yeah,
And
that was it.
and can I just point out that that actually does happen? Like, it's happened to me that they're like, "Hey, we're gonna cancel leave for the next 2 months. We've got too much going on." Okay, your leave's canceled. Okay, that's what
Right,
people don't understand about the military. Like, if you're told
right.
you're going to be here, or you can't leave, or here's my favorite. Remember, you've been in 14 years, so have you gone through a stop loss?
No, thankfully,
Yeah, we
no.
went through stop loss, which was I think it was around 04, 05. They were still doing it, and it was there's certain career fields were so in need of people that they
Yeah.
wouldn't let you out. If you were in one of these career fields, they'd be like, "Yeah, sorry, we're not letting you out."
Wow.
What? Like, these things happen. This isn't. If this was a conversation like, "Hey, is the commander taking away leave in the holidays?" Even if somebody was asking you that and you responded like, I don't know. This is what we have. This is the information we have. There,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that,
Right. And even in
even
the
if that's what
morning
happened with
huddles, right, no, well, even in the morning huddles, the one of the seniors had put out that, hey, we're not taking leave from the soldiers. We just want to make sure you guys, take leave at the appropriate time, because we
you.
all can't take leave at the same time. So it made no sense for me to go back and say the complete
And that's
opposite
so
of what this person said if we were exactly on the same page. So it was like, why did he even take the time and effort to conjure up this lie? And they submitted one MFR and they both signed it at the same time. It was ridiculous.
What's an MFR for?
So it's a memorandum for record.
Okay, so it just goes in your file, yeah.
Well, they keep it for themselves, and in this case, they tried to submit this as their version of evidence, and I submitted everything else. I submitted, what the
Let me fill in the gap for you.
what everyone had said. I forwarded what the garrison had said, what the above leadership said, what my leadership said, the emails that we received, the text messages. Oh, I submitted everything.
Yep.
I did not come to play.
All right. Claim number 5. Article 89 of the UCMJ, legal definition and circumstance of presence must be met. The UCMJ defined this as, it is not essential that the disrespectful behavior be in the presence of the superior, but ordinarily one should not be held accountable under this article for what was said or done in a purely private conversation.
So, the evidence they submitted was none. They only had one line from someone that I had reported when this person said that I said, oh, this higher up person is up to said person's bullshit again, which is absolutely ridiculous because why would I confide in this person that I know don't like me, that I don't like? We only have a professional relationship. It makes no sense for me to confide in this person. I reported this person several times. I would be out my damn mind if I try to confide in this person. But this is what that person said. And of course, they did not submit any evidence. And so, even so, um, this had to, happen behind closed doors and all of that stuff if this had happened. So even then, it wouldn't have been it didn't meet the Article 89. And the only thing that I can think about is that the private conversations that me and other leadership had. This person was my raider, and so I'm supposed to go to this person for everything. If I'm having any issues, I'm supposed to go to this person. And the only thing I can think about was maybe this person said something, but even then, that was a closed door conversation.
Yep.
And so that did not meet Article 89. And again, like I said, they submitted no evidence with this whatsoever. There was nothing, only that one line about the up to said person's bullshit again.
And so God, that just pisses me off. Sorry. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to note here that private conversations can't be used against us according to the UCMJ. So if
Yes.
you're having a one-on-one conversation with a soldier, it's still a private conversation. Okay.
Yes.
So the UCMJ alone should have protected you from a lot of this. Is that a fair assessment?
You would think, but what I noticed, what the IO kept on doing was they would only insert part of the meaning of an article, and that would be the meaning that would, feed their biases. They didn't include the other part that said all of that. And so, yeah, this is how they played this out. They still made this work in their favor, although they had absolutely no evidence at all.
So they cherry picked the UCMJ to try to weaponize it against you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got more to go, guys. Don't worry. Claim 6. It was not a secret to employees of Ansbush Health Clinic that Sergeant Gaburel distrusts and despises the command. She actively used misinformation to garner favor with others. She attempted to persuade so-and-so in a vulnerable state, misrepresented command to somebody else while he was in processing.
So this statement was made by one of the people that I had reported, and I think this came from when the soldier requested to use the 72-hour room. I think that was the favor that this person was talking about, but I do this for a few people. I mean, I only mentioned two from, the clinic because those are the two that are most important. I've done this a few times with people outside the unit. So this person wasn't important like that. I had no favor to garn, to gain from this person, because
Yeah.
everyone at this point had acknowledged that this person doesn't like me. I don't like this person. I mean, this person has done everything to try to make my life a living hell, and everyone knew about it. So there is absolutely no reason, again, that I would, try to persuade this person in their vulnerable state. What? It don't even make any sense. And then the other thing that the other person said, so this is the new person about the in processing or whatever.
Mhm.
So, like I said, for in processing, right? When you're in processing, that's what you're doing. You don't go to the clinic. You in process for X amount of days. It's like 21, and that's all you do.
Yep.
When they're done with that, you go home with your family, or you finish rearranging your living space or whatever. That's what you do.
Yep.
The only time me and this person was in the same location was the day I had to escort a soldier from here to Larmsey, and then no, I had to pick up a soldier from Larmsey, and that was an all-day event. And when my leadership failed to reply to their text messages to figure out what the hell we're doing with this soldier, we ended up going to the fundraiser event where everyone was at. This was like after work event,
Mhm.
and even then, I did not get out of the vehicle. We were there for maybe 10 minutes max. And then my leadership, they came to talk to me, and then they left. And at no time did I see this person. And that was the only time me and this person were in the same location. So I don't even understand how this person could even mention that I misrepresented, you know, the clinic to him. How?
Yeah.
How? It's
And that,
impossible.
and then the next claim is that Sergeant Gaburel created friction instead of using her influence to build a cohesive command climate. Now, before you go into it, let's read that one more time. Sergeant Gabrielle created friction instead of using her influence to build a cohesive command climate. So you're mad because she isn't using her influence that she's built with her soldiers to push the command's agenda. That's how I read that.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And that's the line that one of the people that I had reported said. Um, Again, when we looked at the investigation, there was absolutely no evidence of this, just what the person had said. It was one line, barely one line. It was barely a sentence, but that's what the IO had used. And of course, no evidence. And of course, I submitted everything. I mean, I submitted that there was an instance where I was having issues with the two NCOs, the unhinged one, and then the one claiming that I misrepresented the clinic to said person. And so I contacted um, people that outrank me by far, but these people were in my chain of command. And I was like, hey, this is a situation at hand. I need some guidance so I can handle this at my level. Like,
Right.
tell me how to fix this. So I wasn't trying to get anyone in trouble. In fact, I try to squash it at my level. So I don't understand how they even came up with this. I was dealing with a hostile situation, and I was asking for guidance to squash it.
Which is what we're literally trained to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So before we go on to I want to bring up your most recent article, your most recent paperwork that you were given. You had put up a video of you explaining this, you explaining your story, and what was the command's response? Which, by the way, what was it? 24, 48 hours? It wasn't long, was it?
Yeah, it was about 48 hours.
So within
Yeah.
48 hours of her putting this video up on TikTok, using her words to explain her story, they what did they say?
So they called me into the um, main building to present me with a cease and desist counseling. And the verbiage in the counseling was very It wasn't specific at all. It was just
Mm-mm,
there's so many rooms for interpretation. So immediately I was like, oh, this is not good.
mm-mm.
And so it was, it was already, I was already annoyed because the person that they brought along with the other higher up for this counseling was one of the people that I had reported. This is one of the people that I had asked for a no contact order because of, the how this person was towards me. Everything was very hostile about our interaction. I'm like, I'm not trying to, get unalived or harmed in any way, shape, or form. So I was
Yep.
already annoyed that, my leadership, well, the clinic's leadership would um, bring this person along for the ride. But anyway, so one of the statements that I saw was, um, I cannot share private and personal identifiable information. I mean, I understand the PII part, but
Yeah.
when I had asked about, well, what is the private part? They refused to tell me what it was. In fact, the person said, well, have your lawyer contact me and I will explain it to them. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm here. I'm here.
Now there's a
So
specific phrase in that document that needs to be said, and it is, this is in no way, and this isn't verbatim, but this is in no way meant to impede on Sergeant Gabriel's First Amendment rights. Really? Because it seems a hell of a lot like you just told her that she can't tell her story on social media. So, uh, yeah, pretty much you did just tell her that fuck your rights.
pretty much. And so when it came to signing everything, I was like, hey, I gotta have um, legal rep to, look over this,
I love the note. I
just to
love
make
the note.
sure.
She wrote a note. Like,
Oh yeah, I made sure I put
I know you
a
can't
note
show
in
it,
the
but
bag.
it's,
Right, yeah.
but this
I was
paperwork
not
is why
playing.
we're being so cautious,
Right,
with not mentioning, like, we're not even really mentioning much rank
right.
because we just don't want to have this issue and get the story out. But again, these aren't low ranking individuals. These aren't,
No.
these are high ranking individuals in the Army. So with that, let's move on to, we've only got a few more, I promise, only a few more. It was a lot of ink they wasted on this thing. Um, it seems likely that Sergeant Gabriel influenced junior soldiers against the commander. Seems likely. Don't have any proof. Seems likely
Yeah.
though.
So again, we scanned the entire investigation. There was absolutely no proof of this in any way, shape, or form at all. It was just, what the people kind of said, the
That's
people
an
that had
opinion,
reported, kind of what they said. And they didn't even say this at all. It was just kind of like, that's what the investigator got from that.
right?
And the investigator came up with likely, likely. And of course, I submitted every evidence with me fully supporting the chain of command when it did
Mm-hmm.
something right. So if a soldier was having issues and they, fear talking to the, command team because they fear, you know, reprisal, I would, talk to that soldier and be like, hey, they're not like this. Let's give them a chance.
Trust the
Let's give
chain of
them a chance
command. Trust
before
the chain of command. Yep.
we elevate this issue. And I've done this multiple times, and I have the emails, I have the text messages, I have everything to prove this. And that's what I submitted in my rebuttal because, of course, the investigating officer refused to accept my evidence.
So again, I'm just going to repeat this claim. It seems likely that Sergeant Gabriel influenced junior soldiers against the commander. That's an opinion. That's not a fact. That you didn't say I have evidence. It is a, you said likely. Well, that's a freaking opinion. And it's an
Yeah.
opinion that is based on fraternization. In reality, these people all know each other. And if you think they're not having a beer somewhere talking about this and how they're going to fuck this woman over, I promise you they are. I
I mean,
promise you.
we submitted evidence of them fraternizing. I mean, on the weekends, the one of the enlisted would hang out with another individual that is not enlisted, and they would do this on the weekends to play video games.
Yep.
We
Side note,
reported this several times. The soldiers reported this several times.
you're impressed I got that word this time, aren't you?
Ah, so proud of you.
Okay.
First time go.
Oh man. Okay. Claim number 9. The recurring topics of she doesn't care, only concerned with OER, checking the boxes, unified voice seem to come from a singular voice.
Again, they submitted no evidence of this. The only word that we can find that, was a part of the investigation was unified voice. And this was one of the questions that they had asked about me in the sworn statements. And one of the soldiers had said, we wanted to have a unified voice. This was not regarding me whatsoever. This was not regarding, I don't think, anyone, negatively in the chain of command. I mean, the soldier that said this was just using it in the context that it meant to be used as.
Yeah.
And the IO took it and ran with it. There wasn't anything in the investigation that said she doesn't care or I don't care. We're only concerned about the OER or anything of that sort. They submitted nothing for this. And of course, I submitted everything with me, showing that the chain of command, was at one point very supportive of us. I mean, I went to school back to back and I showed this, like, nah, like they do care here. I'm proving it.
Yep.
I'm proving that they care about our education. And I submitted the different TDYs of the soldiers going to different schools. I submitted those. They submitted nothing.
Hmm. So it's almost like you actually give a shit about soldiers underneath you. And even the soldiers standing next to you, maybe even the same rank, maybe even higher rank. It just, when you have an NCO that gives a shit, it's very evident. It's evident because, like you said, it, I was fortunate. I had I had a couple of really good supervisors in my first duty station. I was airman of the quarter for my group. I was airman of the year for my flight. Um, I got airman below the zone, which for in the Air Force you rank up like I think it was like 6 months early. Like these, if they, I got 2 medals going out of Japan. If these supervisors had not written those packages for me, written the documents to get me that airman of the year, airman of the quarter stuff. Like, yeah, it looks good for them. They're my supervisor. It looks good for the flight, but still, they picked me out of. I think we had 110 people in the shop, and they used me to be that person. If I didn't have good supervisors that saw that potential in me and fostered it and fanned those flames, I never would have gotten any of those things. I never
Right.
would have, because it's not, you cannot get yourself those type of awards. It takes your supervisors, your chain of command, to get you those awards. You, most of the time, I'm not saying never, but most of the time you're not writing your own packages. Somebody's
Right.
writing them for you, and it's usually people like Sergeant Gaburel. I think that's important to say. um Claim number 10, and this is the last claim for this time. Claim number 10, the fact that Sergeant Gabriel's number 1 and number 2 NCO deny being present at the DEOC survey uh, collaboration while others place them on the scene is disturbing. Did anyone ask you to take the DEOC survey together, or were you coached on how to answer?
So, the
What first off, what's the what is it? The DEOCs?
yeah, so that's pretty much the command climate survey.
Okay,
It gauges, the vibe of the clinic, if you will.
understood.
And so I just have to go back and address the number 1 and number 2 NCO.
Yeah.
So this came from, remember I had said I was, jumping from offices to offices because I didn't have
Hmm.
like a spot to stay. So this is where this came from. I think in total I had about maybe 5 offices, but I had 3 that I would jump to if needs be, and I would have those soldiers use the offices if they needed to use those offices that became empty, like after I found my resting spot. But I think they said that these soldiers were my number 1 and number 2 is because when I was in charge of them, in the PCMH area, those were my two team leaders. And so I became their mentors. Like, they came to me for everything. And even
Yeah.
after I left that area, I was still their mentor. Like, this is a known thing that I mentor these soldiers. It was a thing. And I guess to these people that I reported, there were number one and number two. But anyway, so the evidence that the
You
IO
have your own
submitted,
clique.
yeah, apparently.
Sorry. Oh man.
Apparently.
Okay.
But yeah, so the evidence that the IO submitted was the sworn statements, which was in my favor. It did not work out in the IO's favor. I don't think it
It really didn't.
it wasn't supposed to do what the IO wanted
What was
it
it?
to do.
86% in your favor?
Yeah.
Let's just throw out
Yeah.
percentages since we have them.
Yeah.
86% of the people surveyed did not have a problem with Sergeant
Yeah.
Gaburel and
And
didn't
the
think that
only
she was,
people
yeah, and didn't think that she was an issue in the clinic.
yeah.
So it's right there in black and white. So
Right. And the
where were you
remaining
during
rest
this?
was the people I reported.
Yeah.
So at this time, I was actually TDY. I wasn't even here. I was actually mid-flight over Romania while this was happening because
Mm,
this survey,
mm, mm.
according to the investigation, was in a conference room. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, leading a survey or whatever. That's not. There's no regulations against it, so I don't even know why this was even up there. But either way, so apparently this was in a conference room. This happened. Um, it was on a Thursday. It's like Sergeant Times training. Again, I was mid-flight over Romania while this was happening, but the unhinged NCO, I believe, yeah, the unhinged NCO was the one that put that on the sworn statement and indicated that I was in the conference room leading, coaching this.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
How many of the people that out of this group are black?
The people that are reported?
I mean the we'll call them the four.
Oh, none.
How many are women?
None.
So you're being attacked by white males? Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Out of those white males, were there any incentives for them to make this report?
Of course. One of them was promised top block. This was a known thing.
And what's top block?
Multiple people. So it's for like the OER, you have to be like in the top, top percentage. And this person was promised this by their rater. And so, yeah, that was the one of the first people. And then the second person needed a letter of recommendation for a really, really nice school because this person actually needs this letter. Like, this letter of recommendation is actually really important. And this person was promised that. And of course, if, the person that I had reported along with this person, if that person went downhill, whatever, they had said would not even hold any weight because this is now a disgraced person.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other, the unhinged one, this person just wanted, this person was just absolutely unhinged, racist, sexist, and this person just kept on going after whatever job I had. So if I left one position, that person needed that position. They wanted that position. That's all they cared about. They just wanted to do whatever I did. And everyone knew about it. It was obvious. It was like a thing. It was disgusting. And then the other person, this is the person who said that I misrepresented the clinic to this person.
This was the one
This
that was new to the union, right? New to the union, correct?
Right, this was a person that was speaking on stuff that happened before this person even got to the unit, and they allowed that in the sworn statement and in the MFR that this person, along with the unhinged person, to submit. The it was just insane. And this person, as soon as this person came to the clinic, right away they fit in right there with the rest of them. And this person was like very low key, but this person was always scheming. This is one of the people that had blocked my doorway that I had reported up to the chain of command. Of course, they didn't do anything about it, but this is one of the things that this person did. We caught this person lying so many times, like for example, household good stuff. You're allotted, certain days. This person took the entire week. And then when I reported it up, this person, the chain of command didn't know anything about it, but this person wrote in their sworn statement that the chain of command knew about it. I'm like, that's impossible. We didn't know about it. I spoke to
Just
your
start
chain of
right.
command.
Just start
They didn't
here.
know about it. So it was insane. Like that person's sworn statement alone was a wild ride. I'm like, they should have just looked at this person's PCS orders to figure out when this person got here. That's how insane it
Seems
was.
simple, right?
Yeah, that'd have been simple enough to squash that.
Um, and before we move on, while we're talking about the four here, the unhinged NCO, you have a text message between you and I don't know who it was, but somebody had to talk to this individual, and they were being called into a room with them. What did they say?
Okay, so there was an event that had happened um, last year, and this is when the unhinged person became extremely unhinged, and this person was terrorizing the soldiers in the clinic to whereby the soldiers would go into different offices just to avoid this person because this person would blow up out of nowhere, completely unprovoked. This person would blow up in front of patients, in front of other staff members, civilians. It didn't matter, and it was, I believe, there were triggers, like own personal triggers, none of what the soldiers did, but the soldiers were scared of this person. They voiced in emails and text messages that they were scared of this person. The text message that you're talking about was one of the soldiers was called into the office by said person, and said person, the soldier, texted me, "Hey, I'm about to have a meeting with this person, but I'm gonna stand in between the doorway just in case." And this was just in case said person tried to attack or harm or just do something
So they
to
can get
the
out.
soldier, and the soldier needed to get out. Yes. And this was in a text message. And when I had reported this up to the chain of command outside my chain of command, they came down and told me, "No, you're lying." They told me the emails that I received and the text messages that I received did not exist. They said I was lying. Even when I said I had the evidence, they said, "No, you're lying."
Hmm. All
Yeah.
right. So with that, let's go into the four questions that were asked uh, in the sworn statements about you specifically. So
Okay.
the first question is, did the individual wait? I'm trying to make sure I read that right. Did I'm assuming that's you? Did Sergeant Gaburel or anyone ask you to take the DEOC survey together, or were you coached on how to answer?
So, yeah, so these were the four questions that they asked during the investigation. These were in the sworn statements. These were the only questions that determined my future. So, for the first one, you only asked one of them, right?
Yeah, just the first one. Yep.
Yeah, so that one, 64.7% were in my favor. The other ones were the people that I had reported.
Well, the first one, or was that the whole survey, is 83% in your favor?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So that's the okay. I looked at the
Sorry.
KCOS survey.
Yeah,
So yeah, this was so
my
this
fault.
was it's okay. So yeah, this one is 83% was in my favor. There was one person, their answer was very unclear, but it was leaning towards me, but I still did not accept that as mine just to remain neutral.
Yeah.
So and then the other ones were just the people that I had reported.
Yep. Okay. So the second question that IG asked was, did Sergeant Gabriel exhibit traits uh, or behaviors that are counterproductive?
So yeah,
64% were in your favor on that one.
right. They only asked a handful of people this time. So each question they would ask like a different amount of people. So it was never the same because in total they interviewed 22 people, but they only asked certain people certain questions. It was almost like
So they didn't
they
ask
were
everybody
hoping,
the same questions?
no, no.
Hmm.
It was almost like they were hoping they would find a group of people that would not be in my favor. And of course, it didn't work out in their favor. So, yeah, this was 64.7% in my favor.
Third question. Did Sergeant Gabriel exhibit disrespectful behavior, words, or acts towards anyone in the group? And that one was 57% in your favor.
Yep. They asked only a small amount of people this time with this one. And
It
the
really does
others,
skew the numbers if they didn't ask everybody the same floor.
because
Like,
it would have been more in my favor because almost the entire clinic was, the entire clinic had backed me up. It was just the people that I had reported. It was just the
that had the
9
issue.
people that I reported that spoke out against me or they made up whatever elaborate lies they had to. So, yeah,
That's my thing. Like, if you can prove it, that's one thing. Like,
right.
if they had some stuff to be like, hey, yeah, if they had anything to counter the evidence that you have, but they don't.
Anything.
But they don't.
There was nothing.
So the last
There was
question they
nothing.
asked on the survey was, have you personally witnessed Sergeant Gabriel disrespecting any commissioned, non-commissioned officers superior to them in rank? But they only asked the person you reported this.
Yep, they asked the other person that was the subject of the actual investigation. They only asked this person. Of course, this person is gonna, you know, say something that's in their favor. Of course, this person was gonna say yes because this person found out about all the IG reports that we made, and of course, this person's gonna view it as disrespectful. Of course, I
I
mean
would
they
pay
put
I
it
would pay
in
money
there.
to redo this survey and ask everybody the same 4 questions. That
Yeah, I mean this was the sworn statement, so yeah.
All right, let's talk about some retaliation that you received from your commanding clinic since all this has gone down. Uh, you had the COC changing the day that you made your report to the region CSM.
So
First
that's
off,
the
what's the
NCOR.
CSM?
So that's the command sergeant major.
Thank you. So yeah, tell us about that.
So that's the one I had previously mentioned about when I had requested to speak to the region sergeant major. Um, they went in and they changed my NCR that day that I requested to make the report. Actually, that was the day of the report. So yeah, I went from having all 5 exceeded standard to 3 exceed standard and 2 met standard. And when we submitted this was the only thing that the IO had considered, lightly considered in the investigation. And the IO said that it was changed to be in my favor.
That's not in your favor.
No. But that's what the IO said though.
Yeah. All right. Uh, have you been removed from any positions?
Yes. So the first couple times we had made the report, the first time I was removed from the primary care NCO position. This happened back in like um, December. This happened on December 9th. I found this out while I was in the Sharp school. I was supposed to be the needed victim advocate. So I was 2 hours away and this happened. I was removed from my position. I didn't know until the soldiers texted me and said, hey, they just introduced the unhinged NCO as our new NCOIC. What is going on? Because he's been bragging about it for a couple days. What's going on here? And I didn't know about it. And so after I was finished with school on the 10th of December, I drove straight up and I started asking questions. And my leadership just kind of smirked and said, "Oh," they kind of did one of these little wiggles right here. They said, "Oh, I was going to tell you about it later on." and he kept on doing the wiggle thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
And then the second one was after the investigation started, because I don't think I was a subject of the investigation. Because I mean, I've seen the survey. I was not a subject. The other two, the person that was removed from the clinic for assaulting the soldier, this person was a part of the investigation. And then the person that did all these heinous stuff, that led all these heinous stuff, this person was the subject of the investigation. It was the higher ups that made me a subject of the investigation. When I asked, they said, "Oh well, it's because you're part of the command team." But they didn't hold the other people in the command team accountable. It was
just the
just
black woman.
me,
Yeah.
just me.
All right. So what about, was there any, do you feel there was any like abuse of power, intimidating soldiers or anything going on during all this?
Of course, of course. So this is when they kind of like amped up everything that they did. So it wasn't, they weren't doing illegal stuff, but it was a lot of stuff that they would do multiple times. Like example, like if we did PT 3 times a week, and then the other two would be on your own. Now we're doing PT five times a week, or we went hypothetically if there was like formations. Now we would do more formations than normal, but it's not illegal. But
But you know what it
why?
is.
Right? Why are we doing all the extra stuff now?
Yeah.
So it was stuff like that. It was stuff that soldiers can't really have any ground to stand on if they try to report it. But I mean, over a period of time, it it was up there, and it
I,
got real bad.
I think that's the important thing to point out too, is that they were sending a message not to you, but it was to everybody else, which is,
It was very strategic,
yep,
very strategic,
if you're going to
and
cause a
that's what got to me.
problem, this is what's going to happen. And
Right.
yeah, people in the military, especially higher ups, they're very good at sending messages without using words.
Right.
Did you get to a point where you felt, or are you at a point where you feel ostracized? And did they start
Yeah.
cutting you out of things, cutting you out of meetings and stuff?
Yeah. So after the first couple of reports that I had made, the soldiers, they started doing their own reports, because sometimes I would not be there to manage the situation, and so they started targeting the soldiers. So after that, I was like, no. I made it known all reports came from me. I'm the one that's putting all these reports up to IG or to the chain of command. I mean, they knew otherwise. The chain of command knew otherwise. IG knew otherwise. But my chain of command, they they didn't care, and so they started telling the soldiers in the clinic not to talk to me, and specifically the NCOs. They would tell the NCOs not to engage in any conversations with me, um, not to talk to me. One of the soldiers wanted me there for their Article 15, hearing, just to speak on their behalf. They did not want me there at all. It was not even a thing. They said
You're
no.
afraid you were going to say something on the record.
Actually, the one of the leadership came out and asked that person's NCO, why is she here? Send her away. Why is she here? Like what? And
Well,
even now, it's still ongoing, because after I put up that video on TikTok, they put out in the clinic instantaneously, do not engage with her, do not share any information, do not talk to anyone. We don't want to hear you guys talking about it. It was a lot of threats like that. It's still ongoing.
so you just talked about you were trying to be there for a soldier who requested you to be there for an Article 15 hearing, and they were more concerned about getting you out of the room. There was
Yeah.
another there was another uh, event circumstance where you were trying to help a soldier who was feeling suicidal, and I don't think we have to tell the whole story, but the main thing is when you called your chain of command to let them know that one of their soldiers had attempted to take their own life, what was their first question?
It was, why are you there? We heard that you're not supposed to have any interaction with anyone from the clinic. That was their first instinct. It wasn't to check up on the soldier to find out if the soldier was, unconscious or dead. It
Did they ever
didn't
ask
matter.
in that conversation if the soldier was okay?
Nope. When I got the call, it was just, hey, we haven't seen the soldier in 2 days. The soldier didn't come to work yesterday, and now this is a whole new day. This was like 9:30, and they haven't heard from the soldier. They know the soldier will respond to me. All the soldiers will respond to me. But I mean, the soldiers, they're not going to respond to them because I mean, each soldier is different. You have to treat each soldier different. Every soldier is a different approach. They did not understand that. Everyone was like a dog to them. It's kind of like, do this, do that. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you feel. Actually, I don't even care. It was kind of like that. That's the vibe they gave. And
Yep.
so, yeah, so I called multiple times. The soldier didn't answer. So finally, I drove over there, beat down the door. No reply. We were beating that door down. Nothing. And I said we because there was another soldier from the clinic in the hallway, and this soldier was equally as confused, like, what's going on? What's going on? And I was like, hey, just stand fast just in case, I need you for backup. And I ran to try to get another key, but the key didn't work with that area, so we had to call the guys from the fire station, and it took about 4 to 7 minutes for them to come, and so finally they came, and the soldier was unconscious. I mean, the soldier had been going through a lot. The soldier had so many stressors, like it was it was insane how many stressors this soldier had. Like this soldier was like a walking red flag for suicide. All
Yeah.
the signs were there. Everything was there. It was red flag. It was a red flag, and so I mean, so I was the only one there along with the other soldier from the barracks, and so I called the soldier's first line. I said, hey, this is what's going on. We made contact with the soldier, but because we found the soldier unconscious, the ambulance now is here. We have to take the soldier outside clinic,
Yeah.
the civilian clinic, and so that's what we did. And I had to escort the soldier there because I was the only person there. And at this point, like an hour and a half had passed, and I was the only rep for that soldier there. Other than the other soldier that was in the barracks just walking around, I was the only one there. So even with that, they knew that, and they still didn't send anyone to be with the soldier. So I had to escort the soldier there, and being in the clinic or whatever, there's no there's no signal, so you have to like try to log in with the Wi-Fi. And then when I finally did, when the soldier was like good to go, got all string up with IVs and stuff like that, I finally linked up with the Wi-Fi, and I kept on getting all these messages and missed calls asking people asking me why I was there. I'm not supposed to have any contact with the soldiers. What's going on? It, it they
Not thank
I
God you
think there
were
was probably
there.
yeah, I think it was kind of like one of them just asked for the 5 Ws, and I think that was it. And then when I asked the chain of command about that little statement that that my new leadership said that I'm not supposed to have any contact with the soldiers from the clinic, the my chain of command completely ignored my question, but they answered the other question, but they ignored that one question because they knew they were in the wrong because there wasn't any MFR in place. There was not a no contact order in place. They did not tell me that I was not supposed to have any contact with the soldiers. I mean, they're still not verifying up to this day that I'm not supposed to have any contacts with the soldiers from the clinic, but they're telling the soldiers at the clinic that they're not supposed to have any contact with me, any communication, nothing. But of course, there's no paper trail. There's no MFRs. There's no counseling. There's nothing.
That's crazy.
And the soldier
Um,
is okay. The soldier is okay now.
yes, thankfully. Um, okay, so where have you been told by anybody in your chain of command that if you keep going down this path, that you will not be considered for any favorable positions in the future?
Yes. So after the event that had happened in March of 2022, that was with the unhinged person's whole issue. Um, I went through my chain of command. I alerted them of everything that had happened, but they they were dragging their feet with this. One of the soldiers, they're voicing that they fear for their safety, and you guys are just dragging along. You guys are allowing this unhinged person to have constant interaction with these soldiers, and it's getting worse by the day, and nothing is being done. And so I alerted IG about it, and because I alerted IG and I informed the chain of command outside, well, above my current chain of command at the clinic at that time, they said I went around the chain of command, but there was no proof of that because I had solid proof with the calls, the emails, the text messages, the office calls, everything to prove that I went through the appropriate channels. I told the first line, then the second line, then the person above that person, the person above that person. I told everyone that needed to know. So I did not skip the chain of command whatsoever. But according to said person, they said that I did, and that if I kept on doing that, I would not be considered for any more favorable position.
All right. So my thing is, since they want to talk about all the negatives, let me ask, what positives, what positive changes do you want to highlight that you feel you've made while being there?
Okay, so um, I mean, I can just list off everything that I know, but I just wanted to use the words from the soldiers that they used in their MFRs, their sworn statements, everything that they said about me. So I'm just going to list off what they said. Advocated for soldiers, stop the abusive nurse, because this was the nurse that was reaching out to grab the soldier's neck. We stopped one of the other abusive nurse that was encouraging this behavior. I lowered the burnt out percentage. We increased morale, always having potlucks. I made sure that someone was always present for every graduation, including myself. I made sure I was in the victim advocate course, and I left and I took 2 hours from that class so I can attend one of the soldiers' graduation. I made sure I was there taking pictures and everything. Most recently, one of the soldiers graduated from BLC. I couldn't make it because I was at another meeting, but I asked one of my sisters from a different post, like 3 hours away, if she can drive down and actually be there for my soldier. And yeah, she sent me a picture later on with her and my daddy soldier posted up with its little graduation certificates and stuff like that. Um, I made sure the soldiers felt properly integrated into the clinic. I made sure each soldier received their awards and praises, their 4-day passes. I made sure the soldiers' times were compensated. Like if they had to give a weekend, they would get a weekend back and a little bit more. And I made sure people were held accountable for their actions, including the soldiers too. I mean, if they did something, I would hand them up too. No one escaped it. I mean, it was very black and
Well, it's
white. Right
supposed to
is
be.
right, wrong is wrong. I
Yep.
hold everyone on the same level, not because you're, senior enlisted or you're a senior officer, or if you're an officer, that means you can get away with it. No. I made sure everything is on paper. I'm very particular about everything that I do. I made sure everything is recorded on paper, and I made sure I send everything up every time. Nothing escapes me. I don't play that because one thing about me, they're not ever going to say, well, San Gabriel, this, did this, and that. Because I will always have something to counter what they
Yeah.
said. I will always have proof, no matter what.
So we're at a like hour and a half, so I'm gonna try to start wrapping it up. Uh, when when did you decide that being a whistleblower was? When did you decide losing your career over being a whistleblower was worth it? What
Um,
made you decide that you had to do it?
Yeah, so I did it because they started targeting the soldiers to get to me. Because I mean, it's one thing for them to attack me constantly because it was the constant attack. It was one after the next. There was no break. There was not a time that I can remember when I can say, okay, I'm going to take a breather. That never happened. It was just one after the next. And so when they started attacking, the soldiers started withholding awards or for their passes, or when one of the seniors took credit in front of everyone for something that a soldier did, and this person took the soldier's 4-day pass in front of the soldier's face, knowing that the soldier did the work. I was like, no. Yeah, it was the moment they started attacking the soldiers.
Because, from the outside, from the very far outside looking in, you know, you've gone through so many processes.
Yeah.
You could have kept when you saw how this was all starting to play out for you personally, you could have kept your head down and just went about your work and let this kind of blow over. But you kept pushing. And, it's from where I'm sitting, it's very admirable and honorable thing to do. But I don't think that it's something that a lot of people would choose to do. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that you didn't take the easy way, because you could have,
Yeah.
and a lot of people would
I
have.
mean, there was definitely people that tried and they definitely faced the repercussions of that. Like one of them, this person definitely held the clinic on top of their shoulder for a very long time. And they did not give this person, their proper prayers and their kudos and the actual award. It's kind of like, all right,
Yep.
be safe.
And when I originally asked you that question, when we originally met, you you said something that really stuck out to me, and you said it stuck out to me what you said about the kind of NCO you are. Do you
Yeah.
remember what you said?
Yeah, I did. So the I'm doing all of this because I'm the MCO now that I needed back then when everything was going on when I was a private. I'm that NCO that I needed. I'm that advocate. I'm the person that's going to be present for the soldiers. I'm the one that the soldiers call whenever they're getting, in fights with their spouses and they need someone to pick them up. I'm the one that's writing MFRs on their behalf because I know these soldiers. I mean, I know all of my soldiers MBTI. I can tell you the personalities of all my soldiers. I can tell you, the names of my soldiers' families. I can tell you their top 3 people that we needed to call in case something happens to them. I know my soldiers. I know my soldiers inside and out. There's absolutely nothing that would not do for my soldiers. I will always have their back, but I will always hold them accountable if they did something wrong. I am that NCO.
You hold your own. At least that's how I am. I always, from a
Yeah.
political standpoint, because that's what my platform usually is. I hold my own party. I hold liberals to a higher standard. Like, I don't hold my side to a lower standard than the people I'm criticizing. Like, no, I expect more from you. I expect you to do this the right way. And
Yeah.
I think that having supervisors that are like that, it's like being coached in a sport. People that are good, they loved being coached hard. And me, I was an aircraft mechanic. Why I had good NCOs, they pushed me, and that was their job. Their job was to be
Challenge.
like, yeah, you're a good mechanic, but you can be better.
Right.
You're right, I can help you. What do I need to do to get there? Once you engage with an NCO like that, game changes, because now you have somebody that's like, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to go take this class. You need to, put in some time doing this because you're shit at countersinking. Having somebody that's going to be honest with you and push you and expect more from you makes you not just a better soldier, but I think in the end it makes you a better person, because they've pushed you to be
Right.
the best version of yourself that you can be. And yeah, when you find supervisors and NCOs, like, and supervisors on the outside too, when you find those people, man, latch onto them. Suck it up like a sponge, and always, like, I always talk about loyalty, and I talk about it in two things. One, if somebody puts their name out for me to get me a job, I feel that constant, like, they put their name out for me. I'm not going to ruin this person's name, and be like, next time they want to get somebody else hired, they're like, yeah, no, that last guy you brought in really sucked. Like, I feel that the weight of that responsibility. Um, so yeah, but I latch onto those people, and I think that's one of the reasons I've been successful is I find the
Yeah.
people. My dad told me something before I went in the military. He said, find the biggest, baddest motherfucker in your shop and make him your best friend. That was his advice. And it served me well. I'm not
Love
going to
it.
lie. But I also took it and kind of changed it. And I said, I wanted to find the best person in my shop, the person that was the go to person that all the NCOs went to get the job done. If they needed a big job done, I wanted to be that go to guy. I wanted to be the big bad motherfucker in the shop that everybody came to. And I found the one above me and had him teach me. And then I was running the flight line by myself as a two
There
stripe
you go.
airman. That that's the process, and it's NCOs like you that help soldiers realize that potential. And it's chain of commands like this who make people get out of the military because they don't want to deal with the
Yeah.
bullshit. Um,
Yeah.
with that said, have you had any other soldiers contact you since you know going public for 48 hours?
Um, Several. Just in the unit alone that I'm originally a part of, multiple people came, inboxed me on TikTok. I had civilians messaging me saying, "Hey, we riding at dawn. We got you. Just let us know what you need. I mean, don't put our names out there, but let us know what you need, and we will absolutely make it happen." I've had people outside my unit, out, in Germany saying, "Hey, this happening to me," and the people that were making these decisions were the people that made your decision on your GOMOR. And of course, I had people outside Germany reaching out to me too. I mean, in total, I've had over 40 people contact me.
So, like we said in the beginning, unfortunately, this isn't a special story. This isn't a one-off
It's not.
situation. This is happening to many soldiers, and not just in the Army. It's across the board.
Yep.
Marines, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, don't care. This is happening across the board. So, one of my last questions before I go into, praising you before we leave. Um, do you feel, well, first off, do you feel that you were protected as a whistleblower?
No, no, not at all. I mean, I thought, when Big Army found out that this was happening, they would have put some type of system in place to protect me, and they did not even, they didn't do anything, nothing at all. I mean, I barely heard from them after I had submitted the whistleblower reports. I mean,
Hmm.
I did it twice. I received no protection whatsoever. Even when I called and said, "Hey, they're doing this to me, they're doing this," they're like, "Okay, well, we can't, we won't know until, give it about 6 months, until we figure something out." They did not help me. They did not protect me. Nothing.
Six
It was
months.
very loud. It was very loud and quiet at the same time because it proved
Mm,
that, you can
mm.
be doing the right thing. You have enough integrity to do the right thing. Try make these reports, try to make changes, just doing the right thing and try to hold people accountable, but there's no accountability because you're causing too much of a ruckus. You're
Yep.
putting up that
Rocking the
little
boat.
red flag. Right. You're
Yep.
ruffling too many feathers. So it's easier for us to throw you under the bus than to hold, these 9 people accountable. That's what happened.
Yep. So it's one thing, I think, to not protect you as a whistleblower, but the question I want to ask is, do you feel that your rights as a soldier and American have been violated through this process and investigation?
It sure has. I mean, in the rebuttal, I listed everything that went wrong. So as per the, AR 15-6, they did not allow due process when my rights were violated because the IO refused to accept or interview, any of my documentaries, any of my evidence. Um, when it came to the preponderance of evidence, that that is like the sole, deciding factor when it comes to investigation. And, it's not supposed to be based on, who said, she said. It's supposed to be, the weight and it's supposed to be what the evidence
Yep.
shows. And they completely ignore that. In fact, the IO miscalculated the actual numbers because it shows, I mean, the investigation is factual. I mean, for the most part of it, but it showed that it was in my favor. I mean,
Yeah.
you saw the percentages.
Yep.
It was in my favor, but the IO
Even
wrote
with it
the
being stacked
exact
against you.
opposite. Yeah,
Yeah. Just got to
and
say
and
it.
I think
Even
that
with
is
it being
so
stacked.
significant. Yeah,
Yep.
that was very significant because they did everything that they could to make this go far left for me, but
So
it still was in my favor.
they said in some paperwork that it wasn't intended to violate your First Amendment right. Do you feel like that right has been violated?
100%.
Mm.
And what, proved it to me was when I asked for them to clarify what this private information is, and they refused to tell me what it is because they want this to be they wanted this to be a blanket statement. So if I should put anything else on social media, they can easily say, "Oh well, we consider that,"
Yep.
or we think that is something private. So we're gonna get you on that. That's what it is.
Well, guess what? You can't make me take mine down. All right. So with that said, uh, I wanted I wanted to end it with this because I just everybody's beating you down, and I think it's really important for people to know what your soldiers think about you. Fuck the chain of command. What do the people that have worked with you think? And I personally, I picked out two that I thought people would respond to, but I think I just need to drive home the point that I have read over 15 of these character letters in support of Sergeant Gabriel, and out of the 15, several of them were from as high as a colonel. These letters aren't from low ranking individuals alone. Yeah, several of them are from her direct soldiers, but there are other ones that are from her old chain of command, people that have worked with her for years, people that know her way better than this command does. And their letters said words like integrity, crisis management, increasing morale, mending bridges, bringing people together, celebrating the staff and soldiers, empathetic, helping people who publicly don't like her, intervenes to help a soldier during a suicide attempt, very supportive, stern, but respectful. So, like I said, I'm not going to tell you who it's from, but the person that wrote it, if you see this, you know it's from you. um, Staff Sergeant Gabriel is all about helping soldiers and others. She is caring, helpful, supportive, and open minded. Each time I went to her for help, she was always there to assist and point me in the right direction. Each time I came across Sergeant Gabriel, she would greet me with a positive smile and ask me, "How are you doing today?" That smile alone was enough for me to keep things positive for the rest of the day. She is easily one of the best NCOs I have encountered. When my NCO channel and members of my command treated me used to treat me poorly or like I didn't belong, she intervened and advocated for me. When she got to the clinic, people like me started to have hope. She always advocated for the soldiers and civilian staff. She is one of those people who you can tell loves their job and staff. She was very firm but fair. She was not one to play any games or stroke egos. I can recall several instances where Sergeant Gabriel was the only one to speak up for civilians and soldiers. I credit her for the schools and training I was able to attend. She was there to motivate and encourage me to better myself. I am aware of the situation regarding Sergeant Gabriel. I have not witnessed any disrespectful conduct towards the soldiers or the command. If anything, it was the other way around. As I mentioned above, so and so and so and so have been disrespectful to me and others. I am sure that one person made me cry one day, and this was in the presence of a former clinic detachment sergeant. At the bottom, it says, in sum, it's very important to say that Sergeant Gaburel is a great NCO who cares about the people around her. She is all about helping others and doesn't stand negativity and injustice. She is professional and treats everybody with dignity and respect. She is approachable and open-minded. I am sure whatever she is going through will pass, and I hope she doesn't let this situation change her. We need people like her around. So I'm just going to read this one more because it sounds complete opposite of what I read in the reports. And like I said, my military experience, my experience just in the job field, if you're getting a job, these letters are great. And if you can get a couple, that's nice. But you don't have 15 or 20 of these letters that all sound like this. You do not have them from people like majors and commanders and chief master sergeants. You don't get that, chief sergeant major, sorry. You don't get these letters by being a piece of shit. You just don't. Okay? You get these letters by being one of those NCOs and one of the go-to soldiers. That's what these letters are saying. They're telling you exactly who this person is. When I arrived at Ambush, there was a lot of tension from previous and ongoing investigations, and the clinic was under turmoil. She was the operations NCO working in the background to keep things together and boost morale. I constantly looked up to Sergeant Gaburel for guidance, as she has been my mentor, and I knew I wanted to be as good of an NCO as her when I got to that position. She organized potlucks and soldier morale boosting events to keep us from drowning in the counterproductive work environment we were experiencing, which the toxic work environment was what she was reporting and trying to fix. During my time at Ambush, I experienced a traumatic event, and Sergeant Gaburel was my victim advocate. She ensured I utilized every resource given to me to help me get through the rough days. When I was being mistreated, she would ensure I felt safe and heard. She would walk me to my appointments when I felt I couldn't for my anxiety or backlash from other NCOs, as well as she has gotten me through multiple anxiety and panic attacks from being humiliated by other NCOs in front of other soldiers. She was my armor, my voice, and motivation to keep going while I was at my weakest point. I am aware of the situation regarding Sergeant Gaburel. I have not witnessed any disrespect or misconduct from her towards the soldiers or the command. Everyone was surprised when she was removed from the clinic. She had made things go so well and start to run smoother. It was shocking when the commander announced she would not be returning. So, again, those are just a couple. And I probably could have picked out phrases that were even more powerful than that. And I think that's what I want everybody to take away from this. That's how I want to end this is that's the person that is sitting next to me. That's who she is. She isn't the person that her chain of command is portraying her to be. She's not the person IG is portraying her to be. And most important, she's the kind of person that needs help right now. She needs people like us to lift this story up, get her story out, because it's not this particular story. One of the reasons I wanted to put it on my platform is because while it is about you, it isn't about you. This is about you trying to make change. This is about you standing up for other soldiers. So this story isn't just about you. This story is about we need to make effective change within our chains of command. We need to make real change within our military in general. And we have politicians right now who are playing political games and using our soldiers as pawns. And meanwhile, this is the shit they're going through at work every day. So I hope that we can focus on the things that matter, which are the soldiers. And this story should show you that they are not being treated the way that we would hope our military personnel would be treated. The things that they do for us on a daily basis, the times that they deploy when they leave their families for 12 or 16 months, we owe them more than this. We owe soldiers who raise their hand and say, this isn't okay. We owe them more than this. Okay? So that's why I need your help. That's why we're going to spread this story and we're going to get something done. So with that, I just wanted to thank you, Sergeant Gaburel, for being the kind of NCO that every soldier needs, no matter what branch you're in. I truly do hope that us shining a light on this story bring some actual quantifiable change to not just your command, but everybody's. Because reading this, seeing the information, what has become very clear to me is that the Army has failed you and every soldier under you that you represent. And that in itself needs to change. So with that concludes our show today. Thank you so much for allowing me to amplify your story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sincerely, it's an honor. And to everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with us for an hour and 45 minutes. But, it's a long story that's been going on for over a year, and it just all needs to come out. So with that, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, all my other social media, and I'll leave you as I always do. Much love. Keep fighting.